close to snowboarding season time again, and also for some of you already is snowboarding season, so I haven't made a video in a very long time, so I'm going to make a video about snowboard bindings. You don't need bindings. Yeah, you do. You do need bindings. Alright, so first thing about bindings I'm going to say is that you want to match it up to the flex of your board. What that means is your bindings have a certain flexibility level, and like you can see on these, they're very flexible. Like I can pull it this way, and they're very flexible. So these are meant for a more flexible board. These are like all-around park bindings, mostly for street and park though. They do work wonderfully all around. And so if you had like a flexible board, you wouldn't want super responsive bindings like the ones I have on my team going. These are really responsive, kind of stiffer bindings, and so like the Highback doesn't move as much, and you're going to get a little more response out of the straps probably, and overall it's just like a better fit binding. But typically you want to match the binding flex up with the board flex. If you have a stiff board, get more responsive bindings. Don't get those sloppy bindings. Get yourself a good setup. So next time I'm going to talk about, we have flex down. This is a pretty basic concept. I'm going to talk about binding adjustments, because I see a lot of beginners. They have no idea what to do when they get bindings, and a lot of people just go to the shop, have them set it up. Well, come on, guys, you want to learn how to do this yourself, so you can fix it if something goes wrong. But here's for starters. First of all, when you get your bindings, you want to make sure that you set them up to match your shoe size. So for these bindings, the first thing I do is there's a Heelcup adjustment right here. See that? Heelcup adjustment right here. So when you loosen the screw, you can pull the Heelcup forward and backward. You can push it forward, pull it backward, and what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to center your boot more, and it's just the binding is actually going to fit. Like if you had the Heelcup all the way back here, and your boot's going to be hanging off a lot, and you're going to have like this much binding in front of you, rather than if you had it up here, you're only going to have like this much binding in front of your foot. So you can get a better fit of your binding if you adjust the Heelcup. I know Braden's have them, like these. Unions have that adjustment, and most bindings have this adjustment. So it's like the first thing you want to do. The second thing you want to do is, this is the most obvious one. You want to make sure that these are centered on your boot. You don't want to have them crank it down and have it like all the way over to one side, like have all the slack on one side and not on the other side. And you can see that if I put my boot in there, it should be pretty centered. I kind of ride a different pair of boots on these bindings sometimes, so it might not be perfectly centered, but get these on here. You can pretty much see that it's fairly centered on the boot. You don't have too much on one side, and this is you're gonna get way more response out of your binding that way. So that's probably one of those basic, most important adjustments you could do. And a lot of people overlook that. A lot of people just slap their bindings on, and then they just leave them. But you really need to learn how to adjust your bindings. It's really important. Now, referring to slapping bindings on, when you go to mount your bindings, it really is personal preference. If you want to have bindings that can go switch and forward, duck your stance out. Now, a lot of people stand naturally with ducked out feet like this. So, but the actual angles, those are all just personal preference. All personal preference. Just match it up to your body. I don't really know how to explain how to do that. I ride mine at 15 in the front, negative 12 in the back. That's on all my boards, and But it just matters on the rider. Just take a look at your feet when you're standing naturally and see like which one's kind of leaning out more. You want your front foot probably like a couple more degrees out. But basically, you know, if you go out and after a long day you're starting to get pain on the inside of your foot or the outside of your foot, you know, try to pay attention to where the pain is. And because binding angles can actually fix a lot of that pain. Just a couple degrees, like if you're getting pain on certain points of your foot, just a couple degrees can kind of ease up that constant pressure. Because what happens is, if your feet are naturally like this, but you're forcing it to stand like, forcing yourself to stand like this, you're going to have your foot pushing up against the side of the binding, and it's eventually going to cause like wear along the side of your feet, inside your feet. So you definitely just, I mean, if you're getting a lot of pain in your ankles and it's not a pressure point, you know, pay attention to your binding angles. That's super important. A couple degrees can make all the difference in my opinion. So that's binding angles. Now with the binding stance, like how far apart you want your feet, that is going to be based on whether, well, first of all, it's going to be based on how tall you are. And the second thing it's going to be based on is if you're riding more park, if you're doing more freestyle, like free riding, you know, just there's a lot of preference too, because typically a lot of people that ride park like their feet further apart because you get more stability. Some free ride guys, they might want to put it just a little bit closer, kind of in that middle set of holes. That way you get more turning. Because basically you get, if you have your feet close together, like a little bit of turn, like a little bit of movement will turn your whole board, rather than like if you're like this, you'd have to bring your foot out like this far to turn it. Can't really explain it that well, but wider, more stability, narrower, easier turns. Another thing that's important to note is when you're looking at bindings, you know, what kind of construction do they have? What do the heel cups look like? What kind of features do they have? And just look into it, because pretty much everything's important. Like when I say that, I mean personally I like these bindings with the metal heel cup and then the plastic high back, because what happens is you get this really solid response laterally, but then you still get that torsional flex. It's really solid. Now a lot of bindings have full plastic construction alongside, and they use like carbon reinforcements and stuff, so don't totally put out plastic bindings. A lot of those are responsive too. But if you want like a really safe bet, if you're not sure, if you're going into a shop or something, metal heel cup, plastic high back is what I would recommend, because that's going to be your safest bet. Now, another thing you want to look at, toe ramp. See how this goes up in the it goes up towards the front. You kind of want to, these you can loosen up a screw in, and then you can push the plate forward and backward, so you have the heel cup fixed to the way your boot goes up. It's just, you get more response, and again, it's just that you gotta match up to your own boot size. You can't like give any recommendations on, you know, how far it needs to be out. There's no certain measurement. Just eye it up, you know. Another thing you want to look at, heel dampening. All bindings pretty much have some sort of heel dampening. This one has an air dampening system. If you look at these bindings, there's like EVA padding right here you can push on, and what this does is it gives you more. And second of all, it's going to protect your foot from impacts. So if you come up short on a jump and you land over here rather than here, it's going to protect your heels a little bit from bruising. So heel dampening is also very important. Another thing I missed, that's another really basic thing to adjust, is where your foot sits on your board. So let's try and get this good angle here. Most bindings, not all bindings, have on the actual base plate like an adjustment, so you can push your binding this way or that way, and then put the screws down and it holds it in. you want to make sure your boot is centered on your board this way. You want to make sure that your boot is not hanging off too much, too little, and this is something really important for those with bigger feet. I kind of have bigger feet. There's a size 11.5s. I usually wear like 12s, but these just happen to fit me. So what I do is, since the heel doesn't hit as soon as the toe does, because of that toe ramp I was talking about before, I have less heel hanging off and more toe. So my boot is just, you know, when I lean toe edge or heel side, it's not going to catch the snow. Cause that just sucks. If you're going up to a jump on a slushy day or something and you catch your heels or you catch your toes, it totally catches you off guard, and you can lose control that way. So make sure your boot is centered on your actual board. You know, little less heel than toe hanging off. So, and that would be my best recommendation. Really important stuff, guys. Really important stuff. Another thing, I would try to avoid back entry bindings made by, I don't want to mention certain companies, I'm not going to diss some companies, but there are some good back entry bindings and there are some bad ones. I prefer the ladder and ratchet system. Crank it down, get your foot as tight as you want. You know, these have had so many upgrades since they came out. They don't really strip out that much, and they're super adjustable. A lot of these bindings have toolless adjustments, so that you can center it on your boot. You can kind of move it and center it on your boot, and that's really cool. They've come a long way with these bindings. Pretty much all companies have. So they take a little bit longer to get into than rear entry bindings, but I feel you get a little bit more response out of them. Now, lucky me, I volunteered to wax my girlfriend's board, and she has rear entry bindings that I can show you. I've had flows before, and those totally sucked. And I just mentioned the name. Oh well. But these bindings, they're actually not that bad. I haven't ridden them. She loves them. And the reason being is because after you flip this up, actually I'll do that on this one. After you slip your boot in, and after you flip this up, it has this piece that you push down, and it locks into place. So you get that extra little push down on your foot that you need, rather than just having it, you know, flop around. So these are really solid. These are made by GNU, and GNU's Quicksilver. It's like the same thing as LibTech. You know, LibTech, GNU, Quicksilver, they're all the same thing. And you can see that these bindings also have heel dampening, just like I mentioned on the other bindings. You have adjustments, so you can center this on your foot. It's right here, and it looks like it's toolless. You just kind of pop that open, and then you can slide it around. And it has a toe cap strap. I like the toe caps. Some pros, like Marcus Keller, are still rocking the strap above the boot. So that doesn't really matter either. It's just whatever you want to do. So if you guys have any questions, or you want me to make any more videos about snowboard technology, just let me know. I could explain some side cut theories, or you know, there's a lot of things that go into snowboarding, boot fitting and boot stiffness and all that. But if you guys have any questions, just let me know. And you know, I'm not going to tell you something if I don't know the answer, but if I know the answer, yep, you'll get an answer. Oh, one last thing. This is the one adjustment I don't see anybody do. And I don't know why. I really don't know why. Because it really makes a big difference. The Highback, you can actually adjust to rotate. It can rotate, so you know, you could yeah, it's self-explanatory. You can rotate it around the heel cup, is what I'm saying. And what this does is, if this were centered, this binding is at 15 degrees. If this were centered and not rotated, it would be lined up with the binding. So when you push against it, it would be pushing this way at an angle. It wouldn't be totally perpendicular to the edge, so you don't get maximum response. So what you want to do is you want to rotate this high back to kind of match up to your edge, so it's like perpendicular to it. So you can see these, I've adjusted them, and they're not centered, they're over this way. If you look at the back of them, you can see where the center is and where the high back adjustment is, like the forward lean adjustment. It's not the same. I lined it up with the edge, and that'll give you a lot more response because you get a more direct feeling right towards your edge rather than like it hitting at an angle. And yeah, so that's pretty cool stuff. Snowboard bindings.